this meeting of the Town of Matthews Board of Adjustment to order. The first item on the agenda is the approval of the minutes from September 5th, 2019. Has everyone on the board had an opportunity to review those minutes? Are there any corrections or additions to the minutes? Hearing none, is there a motion the minutes be accepted or approved as written? Steve has moved the minutes to be approved as written. Seconded by Jean. Is there any in favor? Will signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. The ayes have it, and the minutes are approved. Next item on the agenda is the elections. We had elections in September. Because we don't have a full board today, we will defer those to the later meeting. Third item on the agenda. Before we get into this, I wanted to explain one procedural matter for the audience. By law, the board can only grant a variance if 4/5 of the board votes in favor of the variance. There are 5 members of the board, typically, but tonight we only have 4 members of the board. This handsome gentleman here is the board attorney. So we only have 4 members of the board today. What that means is that any applicant who wishes to proceed with the requested variance today would need the affirmative vote of all 4 of the board members as opposed to 4 out of 5 members. Obviously, I think it could be more challenging to convince 4 people to agree unanimously on one thing as opposed to convincing 4 out of 5. So it's entirely up to the applicant. If you would like to hear the matter tonight, we'll hear it tonight. If you would like your matter to be heard at the next available opportunity, which my understanding is we'll have enough members to be able to have a meeting on March 26th, then I will continue your matter until March 26th, and we'll hear it at that time. It's entirely up to you. So with that, it's my understanding that the first applicant, and if I'm incorrect about this, let me know. My understanding the first applicant, which is a variance request for 341 Alexander Street, has decided, given what I've indicated on the limitations on our power to grant a variance, has decided to go forward tonight. Is that correct? Correct. And with respect to the second applicant, 425 Trafalgar Place, you can decide now and go, and we'll continue until 26, or if you'd like to proceed tonight.
I've spoken with the owner and they'd like to defer until 26.
Okay. That being the case, if the board can make plans to be here on the 26th, I may have a trial that week, and we'll plan to hear your matter on the 26th, and we'll continue until that day. Thank you.
Same time?
Same time. Same place.
See ya.
And with that, the board will now hear variance request BA 2020-1, which is for 341 Alexander Street. The first thing I'd like to do is ask anybody who intends to testify tonight to come forward and be sworn in. I don't have my little cheat sheet here. Oh, here it is. Put your right hand on the Bible, raise your hand, or affirm. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the information you shall give with respect to your identity is true and correct, and that the information you're about to present concerning the matter before us is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? Okay, thank you. At this point, we'll open the floor up for Rob, right?
Yes, sir. Yes, very good. Thank you. Good evening, Mr. Chair, members of the board. Our first case this evening, case 2020-1. The applicant is requesting a variance to the 35-foot front yard setback requirement in the R12 zoning district. The subject property is located at 341 Alexander Street in Matthews, North Carolina, and is further identified as tax parcel 227-02218. The home was constructed in 1941 and subsequently expanded over time. The existing covered screened deck located on the south side of the house currently encroaches into the front yard setback approximately 8.5 feet. It is located 26.5 feet from the property line. Because of this encroachment, the structure is considered non-conforming as to current setback requirements as per section 302(1)(c) of the Unified Development Ordinance. The applicant is proposing an increase in size of the screened-in deck and to construct an uncovered landing and stairs, which would increase the existing nonconformity, which is why they are seeking a variance from the board. The applicant is requesting a variance from the 35-foot front yard setback to enlarge the south-facing screen deck, which will result in an encroachment of 10.8 feet, and the construction of an uncovered landing and stairs, which will result in an encroachment of approximately 17 feet. The portion of Alexander Street where the subject property is located is a platted public right-of-way, but has not been accepted for maintenance and is unimproved. It does not serve as access to any of the other residential properties in the neighborhood. And I have some illustrations that I'll just briefly go through for the board that are in your packet. Bear with me here. Okay, here is this is 341 Alexander Street, showing property lines in the right-of-way. Alexander Street is here. The next aerial is similar, showing 341 Alexander Street, but it's a better view of the unimproved right-of-way. This is the front elevation of 341 Alexander Street, and the next photo is the elevation of the screened-in porch that is to be expanded. And lastly, the illustration 5 is 341 Alexander Street, the proposed expansion of the screened-in deck, showing the property line and some dimensions of the nonconformity. That is all I have for the staff reports.
Thank you. Questions for all?
Yes, I do. Mr. Chairman. Could you go back to the picture again?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, so what we're saying here, okay. They're going to want to bring that porch up, that patio or screen porch, whatever it is, up actually to the front porch.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, and then what about the other part, going back, going this way or
Yes.
back?
To the side, so if we're looking at the picture,
Yeah,
the screened-in deck will come forward to the edge of the front of the edge of the house and out to the left, if we're looking at the picture, slightly as well.
just to the edge of the house, not through the whole porch.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
And Rob, just to be clear, that fence does not represent that, it is not on a lot line, correct?
That's correct. It
That
is
is
not.
within the perimeter of this parcel.
It is,
Okay.
yes.
I have another question. You say it's a non-conforming. Okay, are there any other neighbors in the neighborhood that would run into the same situation?
Let me go back to where the neighborhood, the little neighborhood picture here. Not really, because I'm going to use the laser pointer because it's a little easier here. Okay, so this is the subject property. This is Alexander Street, so this is considered their front yard, and that's where the encroachment will take place. But Alexander Street is, all of the other residences have either access from Fremont or from Jefferson. Alexander Street is unimproved, actually all the way down. And so it's kind of a unique situation in that their front is on an unimproved right-of-way.
So this would not set a precedent then,
No, ma'am.
if this, thank you.
Other questions?
Just to clarify on that question, the other three houses nearby, they all have side yards on Alexander Street, is my understanding. Their front yards are either on Fremont or Jefferson, is that correct?
That is correct.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you, Rob.
You may want to see if the applicant has any questions of Rob.
Do you have any questions?
No, I think what's been said is so far.
And if we can hear from the applicant now, if you please state your name for the record and your address.
Andrew Albers, 341 Alexander Street, Matthews, North Carolina, 21005. Just to give a little bit of background, my wife and I bought the house 4 years ago. We've been kicking off projects, every couple of years, and we know that our existing screen porch has some structural and foundation issues, and we can kind of scotch tape things together for another few years, but we know that eventually we're going to have some bigger issues that need to be repaired. So what we'd like to do is to take down the existing screen porch and construct a new screen porch in the same place with the slightly enlarged dimensions as shown in the previous drawings. We spend a lot of time in our backyards. We love just hanging out back there, knowing that the encroachment would be increased from the existing screen porch that's there now. We are proposing that all of the new improvements on the screen porch and the uncovered landing portion would not encroach into the front yard further than what the existing front porch is already encroaching. So that the minimum point there on the front yard, I think I can find the right page for you, I think it's page 15.
Oh, great, okay, you got it, all right.
So the minimum, the existing point, here and a half page there, sorry. The minimum point you'll see on the front porch is about 18.1 feet from the existing right-of-way property line. And so what we're proposing would be behind that line, at or behind the line. The covered screen porch area would be approximately 24.2 feet, as opposed to the 26.5 feet that's there exactly existing. And then the landing area is mostly just a way for people that come in to the front yard, to the front covered deck, for them to be able to go to the back screen deck without having to tramp muddy boots through the yard, through the house, and then go back outside. So that's the purpose of that small little landing, and then just some stairs to get off to the side yard for that. So that's essentially what we're proposing.
Any questions?
One question that I have, is there a reason why the screen porch would need to be larger than the existing screen porch?
The existing screen porch is 24 by 10, and we find that there's sort of enough room to have a small table there and some kids painting areas and play areas and stuff, but we'd like to have just a little bit more room to be able to do a bigger outdoor dining table there and sort of a more comfortable seating area there, be able to put some outdoor couches and things like that, and still have a little bit of a walkway so that you can kind of go to all the doors and get in and out without being cramped. So that's why we're asking for the extra 4 feet to the south and then sort of 2 feet on the east and the west is what we're proposing there, the increase in the dimensions.
This may be a question that's better, more appropriate for Rob, but if you built a new porch that was the exact same dimensions, would it require variance? Is it the fact that it's a non-conforming use that predated the ordinance, if it's destroyed, it really wouldn't have to be in compliance with the ordinance unless we get variance?
The short answer is no, and the reason behind that is because it would not be increasing the non-conformity. It would still be non-conforming, but it would not be increasing the non-conformity, and that's what gets triggered for the request for a variance in our UDO.
So we're here not because the porch is going to be destroyed and rebuilt, but rather it's going to be rebuilt. It's contemplated to be rebuilt at a bigger size and approaches further than the existing. So,
Yes, sir.
Rob, Rob, you live at, because I read the non-conforming use provision, it doesn't allow for the expansion of a non-conforming use. Yet you're saying that a variance process would allow you to vary the non-conformity and allow for an expansion, which would be inconsistent with the language of and the intent of non-conforming provisions. Maybe I haven't.
Let's be clear, were you referring to a non-conforming use cannot be, this is not a non-conforming use, this is a non-conforming structure. So a non-conforming use, yes, that is true, it cannot be expanded. And you can't have a use variance.
But you can't expand, you cannot typically expand a non-conforming structure.
That's correct, without a variance.
So where in your ordinance does it give you the variance for a non-conforming structure? And I'm sorry.
That's fine. I think I have it noted here. Seeking, okay, it is in the, okay, non-conforming structure, which is section 304.
Yep, 155.
155, 304.
Okay, yes. And okay, A allows for the normal repair and maintenance to be performed. Okay. B allows for the structure to undergo a change of use, renovation, or expansion, subject to C and D. And C says that it can undergo a change of use or renovation without having to bring it into conformity with the requirements provided. The change of use does not increase the floor area of the structure, and the number of parking spaces provided for use, and the standards for landscape and buffering are conforming. So that still doesn't apply. And then D deals with a non-conforming structure may be expanded without bringing it into conformity only if the part of the structure to be expanded and the area of the lot onto which the expansion is taking place are brought into conformity with the requirements of the regulations.
Yes, sir. So since this is not being brought in conformity, so in letter D, where you have to, you can expand, but you have to come into conformity with the regulations, I believe that is the situation that we were talking about in terms of the request for a variance.
And that's what I'm trying to figure out. Is it really granted with the expansion? Will it be brought into conformity, or will it just increase the non-conformity because you don't have the setback requirements?
Right. It will increase the non-conformity, and that's why we can't just allow it as of right. It will require a variance to increase the non-conformity.
I think that's the issue.
So if I can restate, to see if I'm tracking with you, are we as a board allowed to grant a variance to this regulation? Or are we bound by this regulation?
That's what I'm struggling with. Because I was hoping you were going to point to something under the variance requirements, options of the board of adjustment that would give you the ability to grant a variance to your ordinance provision at this time.
A variance to the yard requirements, which is what we're talking about in this case. And I'm afraid I can't point to it exactly in our ordinance. I have, but that is the variance is the relief that we're looking for.
The way I look at it is you've got, if it was a setback, Board of Adjustment has a right to grant a variance to a setback. But when you've got a non-conforming structure, which by definition is designed to ultimately get a sunset, to get it conforming, to allow this type of change, keeps the non-conforming and extends the life of the non-conforming, which is not generally the intent of your non-conforming use provisions or structural provisions. The intent is to recognize that the structure became non-conforming because of the change in your ordinance requirements, but to provide that change, provide that use of that structure isn't expanded or changing, keep it living, do everything well. make repairs to it. But when you expanding it, it's inconsistent with the whole sunset nature of non-conforming.
But didn't he say he wasn't expanding, he was going to replace it? He's taking it down?
No, it's larger.
It's going from 240 square feet to
Yes,
400
did you
square
say,
feet.
did you not say you were gonna take it down?
We plan to demolish the existing structure,
That's
the existing
right.
screen porch structure.
You could rebuild the same size,
Yeah.
you could expand it.
New construction of a new screen porch.
But he wants to do it larger.
Yeah.
Larger.
Sorry, I just was looking at the ordinance interpretation from our zoning administrator. And hopefully that walks us through where we are today. And bear with me while I scan this. Okay. Here, well, in the final paragraph here, we have the existing porch is going to remove the reduced in size from the front yard encroachment to meet the minimum. Otherwise, property owner will need to request or receive a variance for additional non-conforming expansion. That's from the interpretation of our zoning administrator.
So what you're saying is needs the variance to expand what he originally has, whether he replaces it or adds on to it itself.
Yes, ma'am.
And that kind of comes back to, I guess, Gary's question, which is if it weren't being expanded, if it were just being rebuilt, would there be any need for a variance? It sounds like the answer to that is no.
That is correct, it is no. So if it was basically in the footprint, that is permitted normal repair and maintenance. And it's not increasing the non-conformity.
So just to present it to the applicant again, and one of the things that, if that's the issue is, should you get a variance to essentially expand the size of the porch? And we've got to find that without a variance, an unnecessary hardship would result. Can you explain to the board what that unnecessary hardship would be?
And I'll admit that my understanding was that I would need a variance if I were to go back and to essentially demolish the existing screen porch and construct a new screen porch. Not a repair, but a reconstruction. Because at a certain point in time, this thing is slowly sinking into the ground. And, I've already got 3 inches of elevation change from one end to the other. And I just, I don't want to scotch tape it together for the next 20 years. So the idea was that, well, if I have to get a variance to build a new one of the same thing, why don't we build something that's actually more in keeping with what we would like to have? And if the issue comes down to that I can reconstruct what exists without a variance, then that's honestly a little bit of news to me. If it is truly new construction.
And I think what Rob is saying is if you rebuilt the porch as is, in terms of its current size, there would be no variance requested or required.
Okay.
Correctly characterized?
That is what I said, and I'm just reading in our non-conforming section right now. Information.
my understanding of section D under 155-304, it says that if we're reconstructing a new screen porch of the exact same dimensions of what's there, it talks about the non-conforming structure may be expanded if the part of the structure to be expanded and the area of the lot into which the expansion is taking place are brought into conformity. So once I demolish the existing screen porch and I'm then at ground zero again, and I'm building new, and I need to get a variance for what I want to build new. So I'm back in the same boat.
So I mean, it would be though within the boards, this may be more appropriately addressed to Mr. Fox, but this may, seems to be the board's authority to either deny the variance, approve the variance as requested, or approve the variance if it's even required. That's conditional on the porch being the same size or having the same footprint.
I think those are your options. I think you can make a determination that the nature of the evidence that's been brought before this board suggests that the nature of the improvement is repair necessary to make the porch safe, and therefore is a permissible repair under the ordinance. I think you can also make a determination. Obviously, you can deny the variance, or you can approve the variance and make a finding that the elements for the granting of the variance have been met, and you would need to point to facts supporting that. And I think what the applicant is saying is that paragraph D does allow for a portion of the non-conforming structure to be expanded without bringing the structure into conformity. I think there's a couple ways of reading that section. And
Not any D, right? Wouldn't that require the porch to be moved back outside of 35 feet down? So item D applies. At least that's how we do it.
you're right, it's got to meet the lot requirements. It's got to meet the
And if I may, that's where the hardship issue comes into account. So if I have to go for a variance for the same size porch or a larger porch, my issue is that, I have an official photograph here. The existing 35-foot front yard setback lands sort of in the middle of the door that we access the screen porch from. So I'm really having to go back about 37 feet just to clear the door, and then I'm in the middle of my kitchen. So I'm having to renovate my entire kitchen just to move the door over so that I can get covered space to walk into my screen porch. So that's part of the issue of shrinking it behind the 35-foot setback, is that I lose my ability to get onto my screen porch. Even if it's an uncovered landing, it's still, that new landing is not conforming structure that's within the setback. So I essentially have to blow up my kitchen in order to be able to get to a screen porch that's behind the 35-foot setback.
And if I understood, one of the questions you had as well is, if what we're talking about here qualifies as a renovation, then we're looking at, you're doing a renovation and the variance is to increase the floor area because of a hardship. And if I understand the concern you're making is the level of demolition that's going to occur still going to count as a renovation? Or is it going to count as, in essence, new construction? So I think that, I don't know, Rob, if you have any insight into what would qualify as a renovation or not, and whether what's being proposed would be a renovation.
Well, without directly looking into our UDO. A renovation typically is something that's less than 50% of construction, that's less than 50% of the value. So, but a total demo and rebuild, that's not considered renovation.
So if you could, Mr. Albers, just kind of tick through for us the reasons you believe that a hardship would result from the variance not being granted. We talked about one, the improvement, that this is necessary just to make the property safe. What else, just so we have it correct?
Sure. Yeah, so I guess it's first and foremost just to make the structure stable for the next however many years. I guess secondarily, looking at the comparison of the other properties on that block, the unimproved block of Alexander Street, the other three properties that abut that Alexander Street right away all have side yards of setbacks of 10 feet compared to our front yard setback of 35 feet. So from a zoning standpoint, we are sort of a unique bird in that entire block. And the road doesn't even exist. It's unimproved area between Fremont and Jefferson. So we're sort of a unique case that is really applicable to the other abutters of that portion of Alexander Street.
And not to interrupt you, but looking at the prongs that we have to consider.
Yep.
It sounds like you touched on the second one, which is that there's something unique or peculiar about the property that has resulted in this hardship. And what you've said is, if I'm correct, is that the setbacks, other yards are different. Explain to us again what you're talking about there.
Sure. So our property is addressed as Alexander Street. And based on the lot geometry, it was determined that the front of our house is pointing towards the Alexander Street right of way, the unimproved portion of Alexander Street. So that, therefore, our front yard setback for the current zoning is 35 feet for front yard setback in the R12. But if you go to the other three abutting properties for that portion of Alexander Street that land between Jefferson and South Fremont Street, they are addressed on Jefferson. So the abutting property on our side, we'll say on the north side of Alexander Street, the northeast corner of Alexander Street has a side yard abutting Alexander Street right away, which would make their setback requirement 10 feet. And then if you go to the Fremont Street side, the west side of Alexander Street has a side yard setback requirement of 10 feet because they're addressed on Fremont. And then if you go to the east side of Alexander Street along Fremont, they also have a 10-foot side yard setback.
And at the end of the day, I think what you're saying is, at the end of the day, that even with the expanded porch, it's not going to be any closer to the road than the remainder of the structure.
Exactly. Yes. So the new screen porch plus the landing connector deck would not be any closer to the Alexander Street right of way than what the existing front porch already is, which is approximately 18 feet off of Alexander Street.
Are there other questions? Yeah. Mr. Albers? Are there other individuals here who'd like to address the board? Anything else from you? No? If there's nothing further, then we'll close the evidence in the case and we'll open up for board discussion.
Well, there is a comment within the application or listed in the packet discussing the property 400 Fremont Street, where our board granted a minor variance to the setbacks for fairly similar reasons that this portion of our community is fairly unique in terms of its of age being platted, so that houses are situated differently than, say, a subdivision with regular lot lines. So I think that probably speaks to the spirit of the
It's just unique. It's a unique piece of property in this particular area. And as long as he is not going any further out on the setback, on his front porch that's existing.
Their comments or thoughts? Perhaps it makes sense to put in the list factors. Usually in the packet.
In addition to that too, I think, he's talking about 10 feet. That is not much, but that is not very wide for an area. Kind of long.
Yeah, I see that in the packet here. Let's see.
Well,
I do see it.
example facts and findings. Necessary hardship will result from the strict application of this title. Shall not be necessary to demonstrate the absence of the variance, no reasonable cost can be made for the property. It says strict application of the setback requirements to an existing non-conforming structure creates unnecessary hardship because no improvement may be done to the structure. However, similar structures in the neighborhood may enjoy the ability to be improved.
So, among the things that we should consider are whether there are special or unique circumstances or conditions of practical difficulties which apply to land, which are not generally applicable to other land buildings or structures. And I think the testimony, the unrebutted testimony, has been that this particular parcel is unique in the sense that even though it's right there in the same neighborhood and there are other homes, that because it faces Alexander Street, it's subject to a 35-foot setback, whereas the neighboring homes are subject, either because they're on Jefferson or some other street, are subject only to a 10-foot setback, which does, in my mind, make this particular parcel somewhat unique and different. Does the board have any thoughts or disagreements on that? Second factor that we should consider is whether there are special circumstances or conditions or practical difficulties result or don't result from the applicant or a representative of the applicant. And I think it's fairly clear here that the applicant inherited this situation with this non-conforming use for some period of time, that the applicant has been forced into a situation of needing to repair the structure given its age, and therefore that a hardship that we're looking at in the difficulties or circumstances that are before us may or not result in the applicant himself. We should consider whether the unique hardship situations cited by the applicant are not hardships resulting from personal or household members' circumstances that would no longer be applicable to the location if the applicant no longer lived there. In other words, is this a hardship that's specific to the applicant, or is this a hardship that relates to the land itself? And I think that goes back to our earlier discussion that relates to the land, and not in particular to the hardship to the applicant who's not looking to repair the porch because of anything peculiar to the way he operates the home or lives in the home or anything like that. Do you disagree with that or have any
Well,
thoughts?
it says the house was constructed before zoning regulations were even in place.
We're also to consider whether the granting the variance would result in advantage use or special privileges to the applicant and the property owner. It seems in this case that it would not result in any special privileges to the applicant and the property owner. He is attempting to enjoy the use of the city porch on a configuration that's roughly similar to homes elsewhere in the neighborhood, and that certainly is consistent with the overall, the remainder of the house and how it's situated in the property is set back. Any thoughts or observations on that point? That we're supposed to consider whether the proposed use and the appearance of any proposed addition or alteration will be compatible with and will not negatively impact nearby properties. We do not have heard any testimony that there will be any negative impact on nearby properties. And, so I don't think there's any evidence to reach a conclusion that that would be the fact. Thoughts or disagreement on that? And then, of course, we'll consider whether the variance would be materially detrimental or not be materially detrimental to the health, safety, and welfare of the person who designed and worked in the neighborhood. We've heard no evidence that it would be detrimental to the neighborhood. In fact, it's consistent with it sounds like we see in the neighborhood with respect to other houses. Are there additional thoughts or comments on those as potential findings for the board?
I would suggest two other things. One, Alexander Street is while Public Street is unopened and unimproved. And two, the applicant provided in his application further justification for each of the elements that this board was required to find and to adopt those as well. And then the third one is there's no one that's spoken opposition to the grant applications.
Okay. Any further comments? If not, is there a motion with respect to the application? Judy moves that the variance, the application for variance be granted. Is there a second to that motion?
I'll second it.
Seconded by Steve. Any discussion?
You pretty well covered it.
Okay. As many as are in favor of the motion to approve the application for variance, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, no. It is carried unanimously and the variance is approved. Thank you. And with that, are there other matters that the board would like to consider? That, then, yes. What's this?
What's this?
You could continue this meeting, recess this to the 26th. Therefore, you wouldn't have to notice it.
Yeah.
Is that something that I do?
Working for it.
Is there a motion that we continue this meeting until the 26th so that we can bring up the additional variance request at that time? So
Second.
moved by Steve, seconded by Jeannie. As much as favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. We are in recess. Go play.